A big box from the UK just arrived, and inside is yet another 1963 AC30 non-top boost disc this time. The first one that's still in progress in the other video series had the top boost add-on, though it was not factory. This one does not have any, though the owner did provide a kit, which I'll look at down the line. But I spoke to him, and the first thing we're going to do is restore this as is and let him hear this versus the other one with the top boost. As far as I can tell, it has all Albion iron, and I'll be triple checking that. It's got the original UK plug for 240 volt use. It's actually set to 245 right now, but I'll be setting this to 115 use. It's got a lot of dirt, not a lot of rust, but a lot of dirt. And we find something non-abrasive. Well, I'll use this toothbrush, which is one of the things I use to clean things. It's a dirty toothbrush. I cleaned it, and alcohol as needed. It's got a lot of glitter in this built-up stuff. Maybe it had a New Year's celebration. Well, UK maybe it was Guy Fawkes. But it's going to need a lot of cleaning, just like the other one has gotten. We'll take a look at the next bunch of stuff. Okay, it's got original output tubes and preamp tube sockets and rectifier tube socket. These look to be in much better shape than the ones on the other one, which were all full of oil and gunk. It's got the original filter cap. That needs to be changed. That's no big deal. Original choke. And the original output transformer. And this one does line up to the holes in the chassis, so that's nice. I'll confirm that it's an Albion. I believe that's what the owner was told. It doesn't have the Woden stuff on top, but maybe it's worn off. I'll know more once it's all cleaned up either way. Okay, still has the selector switch. Though these do get fragile, this one seems to be in good shape. I will probably hardwire it to 115 either way, just so no one can say, what does this do? And blow things up. Either a non-original power switch, or it has been taken off and put back wrong, because that should be pretty much flush to the chassis. I'm pretty sure that's non-original. The knobs all look original. We'll check the pots in a little bit. All right, from this view, you can see that the choke is also an Albion. Original input jack hardware. Let's take a look at the next fun stuff. Make sure that the switches work. That's good. Starting here at the input end, it's much, much more original. Sorry, I just heard my high school English teacher telling me not to be redundant and to use better words. It's much more original than the other 63, including original electrolytics that need to be changed out. I can't tell if these have been changed out. If they were changed out a long time ago, or maybe they just used carbon films for those three back in the day. That cap has been changed out, I'm pretty sure. All the other large coupling caps in the amp are the WEMA trophy foils, except for possibly that one, but that's a Phillips mustard. I'll take a closer look at that. That looks like that solder has been touched, so that might be a replacement. Yeah, once I move the camera out of the way to squint, this head it's been reflowed, so this is not original to the amp, but you know, Phillips mustard is a good choice there. It's got these here, definitely not original. That's not original, and obviously that carbon film. But overall, most of the bits and pieces in here are original. That doesn't mean that they're all good, but it shows some promise. I gotta say, it's so nice to have one of these come in where all the wires aren't burned. While I was recording this, the mail run, and hopefully in that mail run are the wires I ordered to redo this section of the other one. And the chassis is so much cleaner. I just saw something I may need to pay attention to. Of concern, this part of the terminal block here with the 16 ohm output, that may or may not be mechanically secure. I'll triple check that. If I need to replace that terminal block, there are options, but I'm not sure if there's an option that is exactly the same part. But we want the speaker connections to be very, very secure. We don't want to lose a transformer from 1963. There's some frayed wire there, so all that'll get attention and close inspection. The output transformer definitely is an Albion. I'll check the date codes and all that. Owner says 63. So far, everything I'm seeing lines up with that. And he didn't know if it was the normal treble or bass version of the circuit. I should have mentioned before in the other screen, this is the normal version of the circuit, which is the one most people want. All original electrolytics, all original almost everything except for those few components that I mentioned in the preamp, the other board shot, and including the 100 ohm screen grid resistors that don't always last in these amps, that don't always make for long-lasting EL84s. You can see some discoloration from heat from over the years. Now, the owner of this amp has this one and that other 63. And so he and I talked about this. It's one of the reasons I want him to hear this without the top boost before we just add that kit in, because he'll have two 63s, one which will have the top boost kit, one which may or may not. Makes no difference to me, but I think it's nice to have two different flavors. But anyway, we decided that on the other one, I was going to make it a little upgraded in certain areas like screen grid resistors, as if that would be the amp that could go out on the road, because it already had things that needed to be changed. It was never going to be mint. And this one, given that how much of it is original, this one we're going to put back exactly stock, with the possible exception of things like the cathode resistor and definitely the heater chassis reference. A couple of things that are no-brainers that don't change the vintage quality of the amp. And so, total recap, so nothing blows up, but everything's looking really good. And one of the things that's always fun about these, you see the melted wax here. You'll almost always see wax melted out of the power transformer on these. And often out of the output transformer if there's wax in it as well. And it's very common to take off the bottom slider board of these and just have puddles of wax there, particularly in the amps that are run in the US, because that 115 US spec on this was a mistake that the UK engineers made, because they calculated 115 volts using the 50 hertz mains in the UK versus the 60 hertz mains we have here. So they always ran a little bit hotter than designed in the States. And even in the UK, there's not a very consistent supply at all times. So do you use the 245 setting? Do you use the 220 setting, or 230, whatever it is? So there are ways to get these things to run as designed. In the UK, you can use the next setting down, say run it at 230 if your wall voltage is at 240. You can, if you have a US one, you can use a step-up transformer and do the same trick. or you can use a Variac or a UPC even. So I will find on both these 63 AC30s the wall voltage that puts the heaters pretty much close to 6.3 volts. If it's a little bit over, a little bit under, that's fine, but we don't want much more than 6.5 on the heaters. We certainly don't want below 4.9, I'm sorry, 5.9 or 6. So whatever setting, 100, if it's set to 115, you give it 110 and everything's happy, that's great. Stop, you're done. Anyway, game plan for this amp is going to be initially to change out all the electrolytics, and I'll be changing out this UK power plug for a US one. And I'm going to get in here and clean the chassis as much as possible. In fact, we'll get started right now because this will need to sit a while. So what I'm going to do is very carefully put some WD-40 on the chassis, not in the sockets. I like this applicator because it'll foam as opposed to spraying everywhere. And I'll just do one section at a time. Then once it's on there, I'll take this toothbrush and just move it around. And this is a soft bristle brush, won't scratch or score the metal at all. I can steer it well away from the tube sockets. I'm dragging a whole bunch of funk with it. And I'll just apply this like this over the entire thing, all the exposed metal of the chassis, and the transformers minus this label. I don't want to touch the label. And then I'm going to let that sit for about 30 minutes and wipe up a whole lot of yuck and see what it looks like after that. All right, round one done. So about 30 minutes of soaking, and then have a whole bunch of toothbrush and a little bit of guitar pick and fingernail where stubborn spots were. 90% of the dirt is gone. The next layer of rust will be brought back a little bit, and all these rough spots will be smooth afterwards, which is nice, and that will embed the WD-40 in any of those little spots where rust is starting and kind of arrest that. I'm being very careful not to get any WD-40 in the tube sockets or in the windings of the choke, etc. Yeah, I'm using it for what I want it to do, which is displace water and clean, act as a gentle solvent. Things like this paint drip. Who knows how long this black paint drip's been here? It's flaking off without any pressure except for just the WD-40 kind of wicks underneath it and it separates from the metal. And God, so much cleaner than it was. It may not look beautiful now, but compared to before, we're getting somewhere.